Hello, this is Justin, and this is a video about 5 great science books. As a physics minor in college, all of these books are very physics heavy, but I think physics is the broadest discipline of science. If you think about it, the chemical reactions you study in chemistry are governed by the laws of physics. And when you study the cells and organisms in biology, those are governed by the laws of chemistry. So biology relies on chemistry, which relies on physics. And physics is the broadest discipline overall because you can apply it to engineering and technology. So I think personally that physics is the most important discipline of science. Not that the other two are not important, but I personally think physics is the most important. So let's start with the number 5 spot, which is called Physics for Future Presidents by Richard Muller. This book is for the non-physicists and the non-scientists because it is written for the leaders of the country or the future leaders of this country. A lot of the current events that happen have a lot of science behind it that politicians and the general public do not understand. Things like 9/11, the bombs, the energy sector, nukes, space, global warming, all of that are very important to how our country will turn out and which direction we take our country to. But a lot of people do not know the science behind it, and unfortunately, a lot of politicians do not know the science behind it. And as informed voters, we should educate ourselves about the science behind all these current events. So I would definitely recommend this book. And it's very easy to understand. You don't really need to know a lot of background physics to understand the concepts. So it's a great book for someone who doesn't know that much science, but even for someone who does know a lot of science, it does explain the science behind the current events, which a lot of scientists don't get into because they focus too much on the theories. The number 4 spot is called Relativity, and it is by Albert Einstein. This book was written in the early 1900s, and it was groundbreaking because it introduced the theory of relativity. If you don't know what that means, it basically means that space and time are not two different things, but are one dimension. So instead of having space as one dimension and time as another dimension, we actually have space-time as one dimension, and that is how reality works. And time is relative, and distance and speed is all relative. So if you're moving 5 meters on Earth, that is different than if you were moving 5 meters in outer space. Anyway, Relativity is a great book because it introduces such a groundbreaking concept into modern physics. Number 3 spot, The Grand Design by Stephen Hawking. This talks a lot about modern physics, and it's on the cutting edge of modern physics. So in addition to relativity, the other big concept in modern physics is quantum mechanics. And unfortunately, relativity and quantum mechanics seemingly contradict each other because relativity is continuous and deterministic, while quantum mechanics is probabilistic and random. So a lot of scientists want to reconcile those two theories into a theory of everything, as they call it, and they came up with ideas like string theory, which has not been proven, and a lot of other ideas. And the Grand Design talks about that. It talks about a unifying physics theory that would really reconcile the theory of relativity with the theory of quantum mechanics. Number 2 spot is 7 Brief Lessons on Physics by Carlo Rovelli. This is a very short book. You can finish it in a day, probably a lot faster than a day. You could finish it in a few hours or even less. And it is, again, about modern physics. It talks about the basics of relativity and quantum mechanics and black holes to the lay reader. So you don't have to be a physicist to really understand everything. You don't even have to be a scientist. You can just be a normal person who has never studied science in college. You do need to know a little basic science, but you don't need to know a lot of advanced science. And you would understand a lot of the main concepts of modern physics, which most people find very complicated, but if you actually study it, it's simpler than you may expect. And the number one spot, one of my favorite books and my favorite science book that I ever read is A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. This is a very great book because it is so illustrative of so many different theories of science and physics. And it talks about how the world came to be. It talks about the Big Bang Theory, the nature of the universe and black holes, and it goes very in depth into these concepts and theories. And even though I studied physics in college, we didn't really study all these modern physics topics that much. We did a lot of math related physics, but not on a very large theory level. And A Brief History of Time really talks about the physics and science behind the whole universe, and I think that is very important and very interesting. And I just think it's a great book because it goes so in depth into the concepts and explains it very well. So there you have it. Those are my list of 5 great science books that I think people should read. If you're new to this channel, we talk about great books, so subscribe and hit the bell notifications. Like and comment as well, and follow me on Instagram for more personal content, and if you want to DM me and message me, and follow me on Medium where I write articles about books. And if you're into science, then let me know because I can make more book reviews on science books or talk more about science because I'm a physics minor and I'm also very interested in that. So anyway, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.